you go to write your essay, there's all different ways you can prove your reasons or ways that you created for your thesis, right? And I'm going to teach you all those different ways. And this applies to if you're writing persuasive essay, personal essay, compare-contrast essay. Evidence is evidence. So the first type of evidence that is really important, that should go first, is an explanation. And let me explain what I mean. So if you look up here, do you get this? So let's say, here's our thesis. Humans cause much suffering to polar bears, right? And here's the way. We are destroying their homes. No, you don't have to write this. Just pay attention. Do you get this?
Yeah.
Well, how many of you aren't sure, like, how us destroying their homes, like, how are we destroying their homes? Do you get this? So, basically, you know, when a reader reads this, they're going to say, well, wait a minute, I don't get it. How are humans destroying polar bears' homes? So the evidence that would come first is an explanation. I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. Okay, do you get this one? Horror films are not believable. So that's a thesis. And here is the reason. The special effects used are not convincing to the audience. Horror films are not believable. The reason being the special effects used are not convincing to the audience. That does not require an explanation because we get it. We understand what we're talking about. All right, so do you get this one? Here's the thesis. Athletes sacrifice tremendously to maintain their career, and that should be careers, and that should be a period. So here is the way. They suffer time away from their family. How many of you understand, like, how these athletes, they're suffering because they have time away from their family? How many of you are not really sure? Like maybe. So we're talking about professional athletes sacrifice tremendously to maintain their careers. Okay. So this, it doesn't really require an explanation, or I should be up there. So you would not use an explanation as evidence. All right, let's try this other one out. Selfish people are destroying our world. So this is a thesis. Or I should be up here. Some of us are not looking up here. So the way that they're destroying our world is they are ruining the environment. How many of you understand this? Like, wait a minute. You got these people who are selfish, and they're ruining the environment? Raise your hand if you get it. Raise your hand if you don't get it. And you want to know why it doesn't make sense? Because it needs an explanation. So if the writer of this essay gave you an explanation, then you would be like, I get it. All right? So sometimes some reasons or ways require explanations and others don't. You as the writer need to determine that. All right? If something is obvious in the way it's stated in the reason or way, then it doesn't need an explanation. So I'm going to show you how to do this. So let's say, for example, this is my thesis. Having a large family makes one's life much more unproblematic. Basically, they have no problems. So our hands are not on the computers. Our eyes are up here. So my first reason is there's always an expert available. So I'm thinking to myself, some people probably don't really get this. Like, what do you mean there's an expert available? So what I'm going to do is I am going to give an explanation. Now, when I do this, I am going to use these crafts that we learned. Similes, anaphora, personification, metaphors, and hyperbole. Because this is what's going to make your writing move it from a 4 to a 5 or a 5 to a 6. So when I write this in my explanation, I'm going to also use these. So as I sit here, all right, so I got to think about how I'm going to do this. All right, so what I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm going to start off with, this is the very first bit of evidence in my paragraph for that particular reason or way. So I'm going to say something like, when people get older, they go to college, because I'm introducing this whole thing as becoming an expert. They go to college, graduate, and hopefully
land a job. Here, I'm going to fix all my grammar at the end, okay? Lawyer, doctor, principal. What is this craft called that I'm using in my essay? Some of you I taught it to in my little small group things. What is it called? Go ahead. Intentional fragments, right? So our eyes are up here, everybody, right? So I'm using an intentional fragment. Lawyer, doctor, principal. This is true in my family. The McGackin clan consists of a chef. Please stop talking so I can focus. Plumber, accountant, teacher, and many other professions. So now in my mind I'm thinking, hey, which of these crafts can I maybe use? Can I use a hyperbole, a personification, metaphor? There's really nothing I'm personifying. So I'm going to use this hyperbole thing, you know, where you have an extreme exaggeration. So I'm thinking I'm going to write, we have so many different professions. What's another word for profession? But I feel like that's not sophisticated. Occupations. We have so many different occupations. We could, now this doesn't make sense though, we could create a university. But that doesn't make sense. Wait, so give me an example of better, because this hyperbole is not really working, because like I'm thinking like you have these jobs and you go to study these, Frankie, put your hands off the keyboard. So I'm thinking like you go to study all these jobs, but really having all these jobs doesn't really make a university. So give me another hyperbole I can use, like I have, or maybe a simile or metaphor.
A small town. Yeah, that's
Oh, run a town. That's a better one. We have so many different occupations. We could run an entire. How about city? Okay. The advantage. So I should be up here. The advantage of this is there is always an expert available to assist in a variety of tasks. Yeah, I know. Remember I said I was going to fix it at the end? So all I did here is I'm using explanation as the first bit of evidence. So if this is my body paragraph, okay, this is actually how I would start off, because right here there's always an expert available. That's my reason. And if you notice, did I have my reason in my first sentence? No. Did I say first off, having a large family is great because there's always an expert available? No. Okay, we want to start straying away from that, because like when you read articles, when you read real essays, they don't sound like that. Okay, it's good when you're in 5th grade, but once you hit 6th grade, our writing should look like this. Okay, so I have my explanation and I have my reason, and it's pretty clear. So then when I would go on, I would use a different type of evidence to illustrate my point even further. How many of you get it? Okay, so now you're going to try it.